The movie begins a long time ago in a sinister place somewhere at the end of the earth. Two powerful sorcerers duel before a woman who is tied up near a cliff. That woman is Princess Nina, the wife of one of the sorcerers, Finn, who is up against the evil magician Chernomor. Finn proves his magical prowess when he gains the upper hand. However, as he approaches the princess, he steps into a magical trap set by Chernomor. Princess Nina tries to warn him, but it is too late. The trap engulfs Finn's youth and powers and he loses them all. He stumbles to the ground as he watches the love of his life turn into a statue. The magic of the princess's love is then transferred to Chernomor's staff. The scene shifts to the present day where a play about the magical duel between the sorcerers entertains a crowd. The play was written by a young aspiring playwright, Lester. Ruslan, a wandering artist, plays the role of both Finn and Chernomor. Not long after, an order of knights pass by and Ruslan gets distracted. He always dreams of becoming a knight. In the castle, there lives a princess named Mila who prevents his father, King Vladimir, to enter her room. King Vladimir is upset about Mila refusing to get married and demands her presence right away. The king scolds her for not acting her duties as a princess, but Mila wants to explore the world and discover new things. She thinks being a princess is boring and depressing. The king does not accept her explanations and tells her to find a groom before the next morning or else he will choose for her, and that is final. Refusing to accept his father's decision, Mila sneaks out, and one night, she comes across two thugs who later try to harass her. When one of the thugs attempts to steal her necklace, Mila slaps him and runs away. The thugs chase her in an alleyway where she bumps into Ruslan. The thugs catch up and appear from both directions. Mila orders Ruslan to call for help and Ruslan introduces himself as a knight. During the confrontation, Ruslan distracts one of the thugs and delivers a blow to its chin. The golden teeth fall off and the thug falls senseless to the ground. The other threatens Ruslan with a sword and attacks. Ruslan's sword is made of poor quality that it turns into a spring. However, it turns out to be of good use. The thug has a headgear with a pair of horns and charges toward Ruslan like a bull. Just when the thugs are almost defeated, one of them manages to whistle and more thugs appear from a house. The two run and hides behind a wall as the thugs pass by them. Mila then expresses her frustration about her situation of being a princess. To release her dismay, Ruslan offers to take Mila somewhere. Mila holds his hand and accepts. Ruslan takes Mila on adventures throughout the whole night until they rest on a roof watching the sunrise. As their feelings for each other develop, they are about to share a romantic when a violent tornado appears from the skies and takes Mila away. Ruslan tries to chase the tornado, jumping from one roof to another to rescue Mila. Ruslan manages to grab Mila's hand when suddenly, a face forms in the tornado. It was Chernomor. As the tornado pulls Mila away from his grasp, Ruslan promises to find her no matter what. The tornado spins away and the metal pole Ruslan uses as support breaks. He falls to the ground and gets knocked unconscious. When he wakes up, the king confronts him and accuses him of being responsible for the disappearance of his daughter. He cannot believe that Mila is a princess. He tries to tell them that Mila has been kidnapped by Chernomor, but they did not believe him and instead insult him for being insane. The king orders him to be taken to the dungeon and later declares that the one who can bring Mila back will become his husband. On their way to the dungeon, Ruslan was able to escape the knights with the help of his bird companion, Una. He rushes to ask Lester about Chernomor. He insists that the wizard is real and has taken the princess, but Lester argues and says that he just made it all up. Lester ends up telling the truth. The story is from a book he borrowed from someone. The two then go off to find the man Lester is talking about. Meanwhile, the knights who pursue Princess Mila's hand in marriage have no idea which way to go to find the princess. After a while, Farlaf spots Ruslan and Lester aboard the carriage passing by the walls of the city. He orders his comrades to follow him as they tail Ruslan and Lester. The rest of the knights follow. Ruslan, Lester, and Una journey across the forest, on top of a mountain, and across the fields until they reach a huge tree with bright red leaves at the end of the road. It was the exact tree drawn on the cover of the book. The doors of the tree open and they enter. As Ruslan calls out to the guardian of the tree, a deep voice suddenly answers, having recognized Lester from a previous encounter. One of the shelves slides and reveals a door where an old cat in a robe appears. When Ruslan insults the cat for its unexpected size, it transforms into a huge cat and chases them around the library. Ruslan makes a paper toy and uses it to tame the vicious cat. It turns into a small cat again and promises to help if Ruslan removes the paper toy. The cat leads them to another room and proceeds to tell the story of Chernomor. According to him, once every 100 years, the evil wizard kidnaps a princess who has fallen in love and uses her to replenish his magical powers. He also warns Ruslan that he only has 2 days to rescue his beloved princess, or she will fall to her demise. The cat then brings them to an altar with a large eye portal heading to Mila's location. He tells Ruslan to go straight ahead and gives Ruslan a pea pod. He instructs Ruslan to use the pea when he cannot continue on the path anymore. His last advice, Ruslan must not tell anyone. Ruslan, Una, and Lester enter the portal and finds a different world on the other side. They continue on their journey to find the missing princess. Not long after, the knights pursuing Ruslan confront the cat and ends up in a fight. The door to the portal suddenly opens and Farlaf and his companions enter the portal to follow Ruslan. After the brawl, the cat falls asleep. Meanwhile, inside Chernomor's castle, Mila wakes up to find that she has been kidnapped but feels relieved when she learns it is not for marriage. Chernomor says she will be turned into a statue, which gets her annoyed and starts throwing food towards Chernomor. In their food fight, Chernomor accidentally throws his magic cap of invisibility, and Mila escapes using it. Chernomor turns the desserts into monsters to find the princess. In another room, he consults a sphere of the princess's whereabouts, which later gives an alert that intruders have been detected: Ruslan and Lester. Ruslan tries to find a way to cross to the other side of the cliff and remembers the pot of peas the cat gave him earlier. However, he doesn't know how to use it. Ruslan tries to bury it as it might grow into a huge beanstalk. When he was about to water the peas, it disappears. A hamster steals it and runs away. They give a chase and Yuna was able to get it back in the air as the hamster flies away. Ruslan tells the hamster that they are on their way to the wizard but don't know how to use the pod to cross the cliff. The hamster knows. It climbs to one of the pillars and asks for the peas. Ruslan hands it over and the hamster puts the pod in his mouth. The shape of his face with the peas perfectly fits into the keyhole of the pillar. With one click, a huge skeleton bridge appears. Inside Chernomor's castle, Mila stops by a pile of dessert on the table. When she was about to take a bite, the desserts turn into monsters and start attacking her. She manages to defeat them with ease. Mila then walks to the hallways of the castle and stumbles upon the statues of the other princesses who were turned into stone by Chernomor. Meanwhile, the hamster leads Ruslan and Lester to the cave of the sorcerer, Finn, who is now a very old man. However, Finn gets scared and immediately climbs to his hiding place. Ruslan tries to get him down but Finn refuses. Ruslan comes up with an idea and they pretend to be sorcerers who have come to bewitch Finn. They act like they are casting a spell and Finn casts his own. Then, they all lie down on the floor pretending to have lost their lives. Believing that his powers have come back and he accidentally finished off the humans, Finn hurries down and checked only to be restrained. They tie up Finn into a chair and Ruslan explains that the princess has been kidnapped. He asks where to find Chernomor and how to defeat him. Finn reveals that Chernomor's power lies within his beard and if they are able to cut it off, they will defeat Chernomor. However, no one has ever done that. Finn also adds that Chernomor's castle stands among the spiky rocks and needs a special magic sword to cut Chernomor's beard. But there is also another catch. The sword is guarded by a mighty hero. After asking for the sword's location, they go off to find the sword. On their way, they come across a giant golem who was summoned by Chernomor to go after them. The whole squad starts to run for their lives. They run past Farlaf and the other knights who also happen to be there in the forest. When the knights see the golem, they run as fast as they can, overtaking Ruslan's squad. The knights end up getting chased by a giant female frog while Ruslan and the others manage to evade the golem by hiding on the branches of the withered trees. The squad arrives at the sword location where they see a giant decapitated head of the mighty hero who then shows Ruslan the sword and the armor. However, to possess the sword, he must first defeat the army of armed skeletons. Ruslan dons the armor and prepares for the fight that is about to begin. With Ruslan's might, he manages to defeat the skeletons. Or so he thought. The skeletons come back to life again and start attacking. Knowing that the hero is allergic to the hamster, he lifts the hamster near the hero's nose and it lets out a heavy sneeze. It sends out the skeletons flying away and successfully acquires the magic sword and armor. When they reach Chernomor's castle, they decide to split up to find a way through the spikes. On his way, Ruslan finds Mila, who is now dressed differently. She tells him that she doesn't need to be rescued by a man who pretended to be a knight to marry her and be a king. She later reveals that she is about to be wed to the love of her life, Chernomor, and will now have the chance to travel the world like she always wanted to. Hearing this, Ruslan walks away with a broken heart. Meanwhile, in a castle's room, Yuna finds Mila and Chernomor appears with bad news. He deceived Ruslan into thinking he is Mila. He mocks Mila's beloved hero as he shows Ruslan walking away from the castle. Then, he restrains her, but she was able to throw her necklace on the floor before he takes her away. Yuna tries to tell this to Ruslan, but he is so feeling down he doesn't understand. Suddenly, the giant golem appears and attacks Ruslan. Having no conviction to fight, Ruslan decides to accept his demise, but Lester saves him and convinces him to fight. The bird manages to get the pendant and brings it to Ruslan. That's when he realizes that he was deceived by Chernomor. He defeats the giant golem and uses its body to climb into the spiky rocks. The knights who just escaped the giant frog go after them. In the castle, Ruslan finds Mila tied up and challenges the evil wizard. Chernomor sends a tornado toward Ruslan, but the armor and the sword deflect his attack. He then transforms into a mythical dragon and takes Ruslan up in the air toward the castle's peaks. Chernomor takes the upper hand as he slams Ruslan to the ground and tosses him in the air. Ruslan charges and manages to cut Chernomor's beard. All the princesses who were turned into statues come back to normal and Finn regains his powers. Ruslan restrains the incapacitated Chernomor and goes on to save Mila. He steps into the magic barrier and ghostly spirits start to attack him. He frees Mila and sends her outside the barrier. However, the spirits start to take Ruslan's soul. Mila and Lester try to save Ruslan, but the knights appear and stop them. Ruslan's soul gets taken by the spirits and Mila rages. She fights the knights with the help of the others and manages to defeat them. The knights along with Chernomor fall into a cliff where the giant frog awaits. She kisses Farloff and he turns into a small frog. Meanwhile, Mila mourns beside the lifeless body of his beloved knight, Ruslan. Finn, who now has his powers, suddenly appears and helps bring Ruslan's soul back. Ruslan wakes up and they rush in to hug him. Finn also reunites with his wife, Princess Nina. The movie ends under the moonlit sky as they celebrate the defeat of Chernomor and Ruslan and Mila's upcoming marriage with fireworks.